Deep in the mist-covered mountains of the Ozarks, where thick forests swallow the daylight and winding rivers carve through the wild landscape, locals whisper about a creature they call the Ozark Howler. Some say it's a monstrous black cat. Others describe it as a bear-like beast with glowing red eyes and horns curling from its head. But everyone agrees on one thing. When the Howler screams, it chills your soul like nothing else on earth. So, let me ask you, have you ever been out in the woods at night and heard a sound that made your blood run cold? Imagine standing there, frozen, not knowing if it was an owl, a coyote, or something much worse. The first stories of the Ozark Howler go back centuries. Early settlers in Missouri and Arkansas recorded terrifying encounters. But even before that, Native American tribes warned of a great spirit beast that prowled the mountains, its cry an omen of disaster. It wasn't just a sound you heard, it was a sound you felt in your bones. One of the earliest written accounts comes from the 1800s. Hunters claimed to see a shadowy figure stalking the tree lines at dusk. They said its body was massive, covered in dark fur with eyes that glowed like burning coals, and then came the scream. Not like a wolf's howl, not like a panther's growl. Witnesses described it as a mix of a woman's shriek and a demon's roar. Terrifying, right? But here's the twist. The Howler didn't just vanish with old folklore. Sightings continued into the 20th century. In fact, there's a story from the 1950s where a group of Boy Scouts camping in the Ozark National Forest woke up to that bone-rattling cry echoing through the valley. Some of the boys swore they saw glowing eyes in the darkness, watching them. The next morning, huge claw marks were found on nearby trees, as if something had circled their camp while they slept. Now, I want you to picture this. You're out camping, the fire's burning low, and suddenly the woods go silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing. Then, a blood-curdling scream rips through the night. Would you grab your flashlight and investigate, or would you run for your life? The mystery of the Howler is this. Is it a flesh and blood animal, some undiscovered predator lurking in the hills? Or is it something supernatural, an omen of death and disaster tied to the spirit of the Ozarks themselves? That's the question we're going to dig into. And trust me, the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Because the Ozark Howler doesn't just scream, it follows. The deeper you dive into the Ozark Howler legend, the more unsettling it becomes. It's not just one story, not just a handful of frightened campers. The Howler seems to weave itself into the lives of ordinary people, hunters, farmers, hikers, all caught off guard by something they couldn't explain. One of the most famous encounters happened in the late 1800s. A huntsman named Jacob Mullins, well known in northern Arkansas for his skill, was tracking deer in the thick underbrush. He had his rifle, his dog, and years of experience in those woods. But that night, nothing could have prepared him. As the story goes, Jacob noticed his dog stop dead in its tracks, its ears pinned back, tail low, growling deep in its throat. Jacob froze, listening. At first, there was only silence. Then came the scream, a piercing, guttural roar that made the forest tremble. He later said it felt as though the sound vibrated in his chest, like thunder trapped inside his body. Now, imagine being Jacob in that moment. You're alone in the wilderness, rifle in hand, but your instincts tell you this isn't something you can shoot your way out of. What would you do? Stand your ground, or run? Jacob slowly raised his lantern, sweeping the beam across the trees. That's when he saw them, two burning red eyes staring back at him from the shadows. Higher than a man's head, set wide apart and blinking. His dog whimpered and pressed against his leg, refusing to move. He fired his rifle, the blast echoed, but the eyes didn't vanish. Instead, the beast growled, low, deep, and angry before melting back into the blackness of the forest. Jacob never spoke of hunting at night again. In fact, people said he avoided those woods for the rest of his life. But Jacob wasn't the only one. Similar encounters popped up across the Ozarks. Farmers waking up to find their livestock dead, no tracks leading in or out. Families swearing they heard claws scratching at their cabin walls while they huddled inside, praying the creature would pass them by. And time after time, that same blood-curdling scream. What makes the howler so terrifying isn't just its size or its scream. It's the way it seems to choose people. Witnesses describe feeling followed, as if the howler knew where they were, waiting just outside the circle of firelight. Some even said it shadowed them for days, always staying just out of sight. Here's a thought. If a predator doesn't kill right away but stalks you, studying you, doesn't that mean it's intelligent? What kind of mind could hide behind those red eyes? Modern researchers have tried to explain it. Some suggest the howler is just a misidentified cougar or panther. But here's the problem. Cougars were thought to be extinct in the Ozarks for decades. Others argue it could be a mutant bear or even a surviving prehistoric predator. But then, how do you explain the glowing eyes? The scream that doesn't match any known animal. The way it always seems to appear when disaster is near. I'll leave you with this question. If you heard a scream in the middle of the night, one that didn't match any animal you knew, would you dare to go looking for it, or would you hope it never found you? Because Jacob Mullins went looking, and he found something he was never able to forget. I thought I understood fear. I've been in storms where trees snapped like matchsticks. I've faced down coyotes with nothing but a lantern in my hand, and I've heard the forest go quiet when a predator moves in. But nothing, absolutely nothing, felt like that night in the Ozarks. It started with the silence, not the usual hush of night time, but something heavier. No crickets, no wind, not even the whisper of leaves. Just a stillness that pressed down on me until I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. That's when the scream came. It wasn't like any sound I'd ever known. Not a cougar's cry, not an owl's screech, not even the bellow of a bull elk. This sound twisted through me like fire, a mixture of pain and rage that made my knees weaken, and the worst part, it felt close. Much closer than I wanted it to be. I remember raising my lantern, my hand trembling so badly the light swung back and forth across the trees. And there they were, two eyes glowing red in the darkness. They weren't just reflecting light like a deer's. No, these burned from within, steady and blinking, fixed right on me. Tell me, if you were standing there, your light barely keeping the dark at bay, and those eyes locked onto yours, what would you do? Would you run, or would you freeze like I did, hoping it wouldn't step any closer? The howler let out another growl, low, deep, vibrating through the ground. I swear I could feel it in my chest, rattling against my ribs. My dog whimpered and pressed against my legs, tail tucked so tight it nearly disappeared. That's when I realized something terrifying. The howler wasn't hunting, it was toying with me. I stumbled backward, trying not to trip over roots, but the eyes moved too, always keeping pace. I couldn't see the body, just a hulking shadow between the trees, massive and wrong in shape. At times, I thought I glimpsed horns curving upward, but the light never lasted long enough to confirm. Suddenly, the scream tore through the forest again. It was so close now I felt hot breath against my face, though nothing was there when I swung the lantern. My legs nearly gave out. I gripped my rifle tighter, but deep down I knew. No bullet would stop what stood before me. And here's something I can't shake. Every time the eyes vanished into the dark, I still felt watched. It's as if they didn't need to be seen to keep their hold on me. You ever get that feeling of being followed when the hairs on your neck rise and your body just knows something's there? That was me every second. Finally, I broke. I ran. Not like a hunter, not like a man who'd faced danger before. I ran like prey. My dog bolted beside me, and the sound of snapping branches behind us told me we weren't alone. I don't remember how long I sprinted through that forest, heart hammering, lungs burning, until my cabin came into view. I slammed the door shut, dropped the bar, and waited in the pitch dark, gasping for air. For a while, nothing happened. But then, scratch, long, slow, deliberate claws dragging across the wood of my cabin wall. A sound that promised it knew exactly where I was, and that thin walls wouldn't protect me for long. And here's the question I keep asking myself: why didn't it come in? It could have shattered that door like nothing. Was it choosing to let me live, or was it marking me for later? Even now, I can still hear the echo of that scream in my mind. And I know, deep down, the howler wasn't finished with me that night. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The sound of claws dragging across the walls came and went, always slow, deliberate, as if reminding me it was still out there. Every so often, I'd catch the faint glow of red eyes through the cracks in the shutters. They never blinked, never wavered, just burned in the dark like coals waiting. My rifle lay across my lap, but I already knew it was useless. You can't kill something that doesn't belong to this world. Still, clutching that cold steel gave me the illusion of control, and sometimes that's all a man has. Then came the howl. Not distant this time, not echoing through the hills, but so close it rattled the glass and the window panes. My dog yelped and hid under the bed, and I'll admit it, I almost joined him. Do you know what true terror is? It isn't the scream in the night, or even the glowing eyes in the dark. It's the silence that follows, the waiting. The knowledge that something is out there, circling, deciding when to strike. I sat there for hours, lantern sputtering, shadows crawling across the walls, until the sound of scratching stopped. The night was still again, still. Against my better judgment, I stood, edged toward the window, and pulled the shutter open just a crack. And there it was. The Ozark Howler stood no more than 20 feet away, massive shoulders hunched, dark fur bristling, horns curving like a devil out of hell. Its body wasn't right, too large, too heavy, yet it moved like a shadow, and that face. Twisted, part beast, part nightmare, with those eyes glowing red-hot, locking me in place. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. For a heartbeat we stared at each other, and I swear it smiled. Not with its mouth, but with the certainty that it owned me now. That I'd never walk these woods again without feeling it at my back. The creature lowered its head. A beam of pale light shone from its eyes, sweeping across the ground like a lantern in reverse, illuminating the dirt around my cabin. And then it stepped forward. 1, 2, 3 heavy thuds that shook the earth. I thought it was over. I thought the howler had come to tear down my door and drag me into the trees. But instead, it stopped. It let out a low, rumbling growl, then turned and vanished into the forest, swallowed by the shadows as if it had never been there at all. The next morning, I found the marks. Longclaw gouges across the wood, not random but deliberate, almost like symbols, a warning or a claim. My blood ran cold as I traced them with my fingers. People ask me why I never went back into those woods, why I left behind my hunting grounds, my cabin, everything I knew. The answer is simple. When the howler looks you in the eyes, you don't just see a monster, you feel it branding your soul. And here's the truth I can't escape. I don't think it spared me. I think it marked me, waiting, watching, patient. So, let me ask you, if you heard that blood-curdling scream in the middle of the night, echoing through your own backyard, would you be brave enough to go looking, or would you pray it never finds you? Because once you've seen the Ozark Howler, it never really lets you go. If you want to hear more encounters with creatures that should not exist, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. And tell me in the comments, would you survive a night in the Ozarks?